From Beggar to Millionaire, the inspiring journey of a black man. Henry's life was anything but ordinary. Once a scrappy kid, hustling on grimy city streets, he'd clawed his way to the top, landing in a mansion so vast it swallowed sunlight whole. Perched on cliffs where the ocean roared and whispered secrets only the brave dared to hear. Rumors spun wild stories around him. Some said he had a hidden past tangled with shadowy figures. Others swore they'd spotted men trailing his every step like ghosts. The air around his estate wasn't just salty. It carried an electric charge, a tension that thrummed beneath the surface of the lavish parties and sparkling champagne. On a quiet afternoon, Henry stood on the marble terrace, eyes locked on the sleek white yacht bobbing gently in the turquoise harbor. His family laughed nearby, soaked in luxury, while the sun softened their smiles and wrapped the world in gold. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. A shiver ran down Henry's spine. See, you and your family, you're not safe. Henry blinked. The girl's words sank into his gut, sour and heavy. He shook his head, brushing it off with a polite but firm smile. Kids on the street knew how to conjure tales, but Luna's eyes held something different. Fierce urgency, the kind of knowing that doesn't come from imagination. Heart pounding, Henry took a step toward his yacht, but before he could reach for the gangplank, Luna grabbed his arm, her grip iron strong despite her size, and yanked him back. Seconds later, a deafening roar shattered the peace. Flames and smoke exploded from the dock, a fiery beast tearing through wood and rigging, sending a wall of heat racing toward the yacht. Shrieks pierced the air. Henry's chest tightened so violently it felt like his ribs might crack. Panic blinded him, but Luna's steady grip stopped him from stepping forward. She pulled him behind a rusted metal crate, shielding his family from the blast. When the fire died to embers, Henry's breaths came shallow. Trembling hands clutching Luna's as gratitude swelled, a lump caught in his throat. Without a word, Henry took Luna home, placed her gently in a chair, surrounded by cushions and warmth. A son, family forming in the aftermath. But peace? Ha! His gut twisted with doubt, like a snake coiled tight. Charles. That name was a poison in Henry's mind. The former business partner turned adversary. The man who had smiled in alliance but struck in shadow. Revenge wasn't just a word with Charles. It was a promise. Henry felt eyes watching from the corners, whispers breathing treachery. Luna, sharp as old eyes, noticed too. Small moments, a phrase overheard, a shadow slipping by a window. She gathered clues like pieces of broken glass. Then, bam! A confrontation cracked everything wide open. Charles revealed his true colors, ice-cold and brutal. The room trembled with anger and fear, threats hanging like knives. Henry and Luna stood against him, heartbeats screaming. When it seemed the darkness would swallow them whole, an unexpected ally burst into the scene, a tough, no-nonsense cop who smelled the lies and fought for truth. Now, Luna's bravery became the spark that tore through Charles' web. She spoke, clear and fearless, peeling back deceit, layer by layer, until the whole scheme lay ruined. But just as relief began to settle, a cold question chilled the air. In a world thick with lies, Who could they really trust? What price would they pay for love, safety, and the true meaning of weah? The mansion's heavy doors closed behind them, but shadows still crept near. Henry's mind raced, a storm of fear and hope wrestling inside him. How would he protect this fragile new family? How would he face the darkness waiting just beyond the light? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. That helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Henry's heart raced, fear battling hope inside him. Luna, small but mighty, stood beside him, her dark eyes wide and piercing. They were safe, for now. But peace never lasted long in Henry's world. Just as he took a breath, a low rumble shook the ground. His heart stuttered. He exchanged a look with Luna, pure confusion. Before he could say a word, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into shadow. "Stay close," he whispered, but something in the air felt alive, buzzing with unease. Then, an echo of laughter, high-pitched and taunting, echoed through the darkness. Henry's blood froze. It was a sound he thought he'd never hear again. Determined steps sounded on the marble floor, slowly advancing, then stopping right outside their sanctuary. As the night swallowed the light, Henry strained to see through the dark. "Henry!" A voice dripped like honey and venom. "Did you miss me?" It was Claire, his sister, long thought lost, vanished into the underworld where betrayal lingered like a bad smell. She stepped into the faint glow of moonlight spilling through the windows, shadows dancing across her face. Henry's breath hitched. The years slipped away, morphing her back into the familiar, haunting visage of family. Hope flickered, only to be crushed under the weight of chaos. "Claire, what are you doing here?" His voice cracked, shock trapping him in place. She tilted her head, the corners of her lips curling in a smirk. "Oh, you poor thing. Did you think you were finally free?" Claire stepped closer, eyes sparkling with a wicked dance. "I have missed you and our little chats." Henry's gut tangled. She was tied to the old enemy, to Charles. Her reappearance felt like a death sentence, whispering promises of doom. "Luna, go to your room," he barked, primal instinct surging through him. But the girl stood rooted, eyes darting between the two. "What's happening?" Luna's voice trembled, but she didn't move. Fear prickled in the air. "Don't worry about it, love." Claire cooed, dismissive yet sinister. "This is family business." Henry clenched his fists. "You're not a part of this family anymore." With a sudden elegance, she laughed, a high, brittle sound. "That's where you're wrong, brother. You see, I'm the one who brought Charles into your life. Did you think he wanted you? No, darling. You were just a pawn in my game. An accident that went a bit too well until I got bored. The words slashed through the remaining warmth of the room, leaving ice in their stead. Luna gasped, stepping back, eyes wide with betrayal. You did this? Shh, no need to drag a child into it. Claire waved her hand dismissively, but Henry sensed the truth, naked and chilling. You've been pulling the strings all this time? The reality twisted his stomach. He wanted to scream. Before he could react, Claire's face morphed into something darker, projecting the savage intensity of a predator. But don't worry, there's always a plan B. In a blink, a flash of metal gleamed in her grasp, and panic surged like a surging tide. She pointed a knife, glinting, sharp, a cruel promise, poised to shatter lives. The world swirled around him. Chaos erupted. Henry lunged, but doubt crept into his heart. Where was the truth buried beneath layers of deceit? Where was the safety he'd fought for? And in that instant, a shrill alarm blared, piercing through the shadows like breaking dawn. The sound rattled the windows and closed in on them. Lights flickered, people outside screamed, but in that moment of confusion, Henry stood frozen, grappling with the revelation. His sister as the master puppeteer? What other horrors lay ahead? The knife flashed, cutting through the air, and Henry's mind screamed, could he protect Luna? What dark secrets clung to Claire, waiting to unfurl their grip on his life? Time stretched, each heartbeat echoing the urgent plea. How far would the past chase him down? The knife glistened in the dim light, its edge sharp and cruel, a glint of imminent danger. Henry's heart raced, pounding so loudly he feared everyone outside could hear it. This was his sister, the sister who disappeared without a trace, leaving whispers of shame and betrayal. And now she stood there, a stranger cloaked in malice, eyes dancing with something sinister. "Claire, put it down!" he shouted, voice raw with fear. But before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from somewhere beyond the heavy doors. The sound sent a violent shiver through the room, the walls trembling as if they were alive. Henry stumbled back, instinct kicking in. Luna's small hand tightened around his. The knife trembled in Claire's grip, her smirk faltering. Just a moment. "Stay back," she growled, but Henry stepped forward, adrenaline surging. "Get away from her!" The words burst out, desperation rising like bile. He couldn't let her hurt Luna, couldn't let the past mix with this fragile present. Claire's laugh, high and strained, sliced through the tension. But then, another crash. The chandeliers rattled, dust raining gently from the ceiling. A figure burst into the room, wild-eyed and breathless. It was a man wrapped in shadows, shrouded in a long coat that billowed. "Henry! Claire! We need to—" Before he could finish, a deafening blast rang out, splitting the air. The front door exploded inward. A group of armed men rushed in, faces masked, weapons raised. Henry's heart threatened to seize. A pulse of panic shot through him. Who were they? Claire's eyes widened, recognition flooding her features. "It can't be," she whispered, voice tremulous. Her bravado melted away, leaving only fear behind. "They shouldn't be here." "Claire, what is this?" Henry shouted, confusion and rage battling inside him. He whipped his head around, seeking the exit, but they were surrounded. "Your father," she said, breathless. He tried to silence them. "They're coming for everything. For both of us." A cold chill swept through Henry, freezing the sensation of safety he clung to. The last time he saw his father, he was a businessman with a smile, not a monster. "What do you mean? What does this have to do with me?" Just then, one of the masked men lunged forward, and as he stumbled back, the man's mask slipped. Henry's gut twisted. It was a face he recognized, a face from the streets both grimy and familiar. It was Reggie, a childhood friend, now a shadow of his former self, hardened by a world of pain and betrayal. "Henry, don't be naive. You have no idea what your family was involved in." Shock rolled through him. How could Reggie know about that old life? How could he tie this to his father? "Get out!" Henry struggled to keep his emotions in check, eyes darting between the knife pointed at him, Claire's panicking face, and the intruders becoming more aggressive. Luna clung to his side, fear radiating from her small body. But the chaos escalated. Another blast detonated from behind them, and the room shook violently, air exploding with smoke and heat. The floor trembled, lights flickered and went dark, the world collapsing into chaos. Henry sensed Claire slipping away, caught in the maelstrom of betrayal and terrifying truths. Amid the confusion, a cold realization gripped him tighter than before. The mansion wasn't just a symbol of wealth, he murmured. It was a trap. As the smoke swirled, hiding the faces of friends and foes alike, the truth rang clear. Everything Henry believed shattered in an instant. Who could he trust now? What horrors awaited them at the hands of the past? A new threat loomed closer, and in the depths of despair, the flicker of hope dimmed. Would they even make it through the night? The knife glistened in the dim light, its edge sharp and cruel, a glint of imminent danger. Henry's heart raced, pounding so loudly he feared everyone outside could hear it. This was his sister, the sister who disappeared without a trace, leaving whispers of shame and betrayal. And now she stood there, a stranger cloaked in malice, eyes dancing with something sinister. "Claire, put it down!" he shouted, voice raw with fear. But before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from somewhere beyond the heavy doors. The sound sent a violent shiver through the room, the walls trembling as if they were alive. Henry stumbled back, instinct kicking in. Luna's small hand tightened around his. The knife trembled in Claire's grip, her smirk faltering. "Just a moment. Stay back," she growled. But Henry stepped forward, adrenaline surging. "Get away from her!" The words burst out, desperation rising like bile. He couldn't let her hurt Luna, couldn't let the past mix with this fragile present. Claire's laugh, high and strained, sliced through the tension. But then another crash. The chandeliers rattled, dust raining gently from the ceiling. A figure burst into the room, wild-eyed and breathless. It was a man wrapped in shadows, shrouded in a long coat that billowed. "Henry! Claire! We need to—" Before he could finish, a deafening blast rang out, splitting the air. The front door exploded inward. A group of armed men rushed in, faces masked, weapons raised. Henry's heart threatened to seize. A pulse of panic shot through him. Who were they? Claire's eyes widened, recognition flooding her features. "It can't be," she whispered, voice tremulous. Her bravado melted away, leaving only fear behind. "They shouldn't be here. Claire, what is this? Henry shouted. Confusion and rage battled inside him. He whipped his head around, seeking the exit, but they were surrounded. Your father, she said, breathless. He tried to silence them. They're coming for everything, for both of us. A cold chill swept through Henry, freezing the sensation of safety he clung to. The last time he saw his father, he was a businessman with a smile, not a monster. What do you mean? What does this have to do with me? Suddenly, one of the masked men lunged forward, and as he stumbled back, the man's mask slipped. Henry's gut twisted. It was a face he recognized, a childhood friend, now a shadow of his former self, hardened by a world of pain and betrayal. Henry, don't be naive. You have no idea what your family was involved in. Before Henry could process this bombshell, the mansion's walls shuddered violently, and a sharp screech resonated from the basement below. The room went silent, all eyes darting to the floor, as the sound intensified, echoing like a wounded animal. The floorboards trembled as if they were alive. Then, without warning, the ground cracked open, and a dark void gaped beneath them. A figure emerged, rising from the depths. Strangled by shadows, his face obscured but radiating a chilling familiarity. "Daddy?" Claire's voice faltered, laced with an unexpected tenderness. Henry's stomach dropped. What is happening? That wasn't their father. No way. And then it happened. The echo of laughter filled the room, eerie and devoid of warmth. It resonated from the figure, an otherworldly sound that upended everything they knew. As the figure stepped into the flickering light, shock coursed through Henry's veins. A face he thought he'd lost forever. It was their father, but something was twisted. His skin gray, eyes hollow, a raging darkness swirling around him. "Children!" the figure rasped. "You've been so busy with your games." The voice was undulating, clawing at the edges of sanity. "Dad?" Henry's voice trembled, but it wasn't the father he remembered. You're not alive." The chaos swirled as panic greased the air. Luna gasped, stepping backward, her small body quaking. Henry wanted to scream, to run, but he was paralyzed by the sight of a man. No, a monster. "Not alive? You foolish kids play in shadows you don't comprehend." He breathed with venomous delight. "I'm more than a mere man." Claire's face twisted with horror as she stumbled backward. "What did you do?" Her voice cracked. "How could you?" And there, at that very moment, everything he thought he knew about his life unraveled. Shadows lurked in every corner of his family. Betrayal woven into their very beings. In the melding darkness, a new path gleamed with cruel possibilities, and in that flash of reality, Henry realized the game was only beginning. Chaos reigned around them. Shadows danced, flickering in the dim light, as the terrifying figure of their father loomed, chilling every breath in the room. Henry barely registered Claire's trembling voice or Luna's wide, terrified eyes. His world had become a broken prism, fragments cutting deeper each second. "Dad," he whispered, more a plea than a question, "you can't be." But the figure smiled, an abyss of darkness opening with his grin. "Ah, Henry, so naive. Did you think our family was built on anything but power?" Before he could respond, A deep rumble resonated from the depths of the mansion, shaking the walls and sending tremors through the floor. Luna gasped, clutching Henry's arm, her tiny fingers like a vice. "Henry, what's happening?" "Stay close," he shouted over growing chaos, glancing nervously at the shadows around them. But Henry could feel a shift. Panic clawed inside him like a beast, desperate to escape its cage. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening crack shattered the air. The floor erupted beneath them, a surge of raw energy cascading up from the black void. Bits of wood and debris rained down, and the walls bulged as if about to burst. Henry squinted against the chaos, pulse quickening. And just as suddenly, a blinding light shot up from the gaping chasm, illuminating the room. It was a light so pure, so dreamlike, it felt unreal. The very fabric of the air shifted, swirling with colors that didn't belong in this world. "Get away from there!" Henry cried, instinctively pulling Luna back. Yet Claire stood rooted in shock, eyes wide, mouth agape. Henry's heart raced. "Claire, move!" But it was too late. The light enveloped her, consuming her entirely. A scream ripped from her throat, echoing into the abyss before silence fell. And then nothing. "Claire!" Henry shouted, the word a desperate plea, but the void swallowed her scream, and she was gone. Just like that. The air thickened with disbelief as everyone absorbed the unimaginable. Even their father's expression of dark delight twisted into something akin to horror. No, this wasn't part of the plan. And that's when the ground trembled once more. A gnarled hand stretched out from the light, pulling Claire back. But this wasn't Claire anymore. Her face had morphed. Features hardened, eyes blackened as if corrupted by the light. Henry staggered back, trembling. "What have you done?" he gasped, voice cracking. But Claire, or whatever remained of her, grinned wickedly, a satisfaction rippling through her. "You really thought I was on your side, didn't you? You are just a pawn in our game, and our father's greatest creation. The mansion is the portal, Henry. A gateway." The shockwaves of words slammed into Henry's chest, knocking the breath from him. "A portal? For what?" "For everything." Claire's laughter rang hollow, each note cold as ice. "For power beyond comprehension, for vengeance, and for you." In that moment, every illusion Henry had clung to shattered. They weren't fighting against the darkness of betrayal or revenge. They were part of something far greater and more terrifying than he'd ever imagined. He glanced at Luna, her eyes wide with confusion, innocence teetering on the brink of destruction. "Henry!" Luna whimpered, pulling at his sleeve, grounding him in the chaos. "Get back!" he yelled, anger and fear converging. But another powerful shake erupted, and Luna stumbled. Henry lunged to catch her just as the light expanded, surrounding them both. And then it hit him. The truth of family, the twisted legacy that shaped their lives, and the utter fragility of hope. Henry's world spun, a maelstrom of danger and discovery. But as the light enveloped them, consuming every shred of their existence, he understood one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. And even in that uncertainty, new horrors awaited, ready to unveil themselves with the madness of what had just begun. The light consumed them, swirling around Henry and Luna like a living thing, alive with buzzing energy. The world faded, leaving only the overwhelming brightness and the shadowy figure of their father, twisted with madness. Luna clutched Henry's hand even tighter, eyes wide, trembling. With every beat of his heart, dread twisted inside him, knotting thick in his throat. "Please, stay close," he whispered, fighting the calamity of this moment. Then, without warning, the light flickered and dimmed. The figures surrounding them seemed to falter, lost. The very fabric of reality shook, and in the heart of the brightness, a figure emerged, one cloaked in shadows, but not their father. A woman with hauntingly familiar eyes, and an air of command that sent shivers down Henry's spine. It was his mother, the one he thought had vanished with Claire. "Mom?" Henry's voice barely carried over the chaos, disbelief flooding his mind. Her presence burst forth like a storm. "Henry, you must listen! It's all a lie!" Her voice rumbled through every inch of him, striking true in a way he didn't understand. "What do you mean?" he demanded, confusion mixing with urgency. "Claire? Dad? What's happening?" "Not your father," she breathed, rushing forward. But before she could explain, a blast rippled through the light. The ground shook violently beneath them, and everything that felt surreal became terrifyingly real. Around them, the ethereal glow shifted, revealing swirling shapes that twisted into grotesque forms. Henry's heart raced as shadows clawed closer. With every heartbeat, a deeper understanding began to dawn, a conspiracy that went far beyond their family. Luna pulled at his sleeve, wide-eyed. "Henry, I'm scared." "I know," he murmured, but his thoughts raced. "Mom, tell me what's happening with Claire. Why does it feel like everything is imploding?" His mother's face twisted with sorrow. A grim sadness etched into every line. Claire was never the enemy. It's the family that lies hidden beneath. Suddenly, a surge of light flickered around them, illuminating Claire's figure, distorted and angry, hovering midair. "Mother, you dared come back!" she shouted, face contorted in hatred. "You were supposed to be gone. You can't have them." Henry's breath caught. Claire's fury. "What have you all done?" he managed to stammer, the pieces breaking apart but still holding together in a violent tension. "Everything you thought was true about this family, labeled under betrayal and greed, it's all your father's doing." His mother gasped, lungs heaving with emotion. "The mansion was never a home. It's a conduit for power he harnessed from our kind." "What kind?" Henry's mind spun, tearing around new revelations. But the ground trembled again as the figures of armed men appeared, this time emerging from the shadows with eyes glittering like shards of glass, masking terror behind them. "Get them!" one shouted. "Mom!" Henry shouted, panic gouging his heart. He turned to catch Luna's hand, but she vanished into the chaotic swirl. The light flashed once more, illuminating the chaos before the darkness surged back, and panic clawed its way into his chest. "Henry!" Luna's voice was lost somewhere in the dark, and fear gripped him tighter than ever. In that moment, everything seemed to solidify. Then, as the noise erupted, an even darker truth fell like a shroud, lost among the turmoil. A low growl emerged from Claire's lips, her body contorting, revealing the monstrous truth. "You should have never existed, Henry. We were never meant to survive this." The shock of her words, sharp and laced with pain, struck him with the force of a punch. Henry's world spun again. The foundations he stood upon crumbled into ash, and fear prickled in every corner of his heart. Questions clawed at him, demanding answers that felt maddeningly out of reach. In the swirling chaos, as shadows stacked higher, a clarity emerged through the tumult, a reason to fight against the flood of darkness. Because despite the confusion, despite the horror, he realized one thing was undeniable. He was not just part of this family. He was the key. But what door were they even meant to unlock? The answer hovered just out of reach as darkness roared, and they spiraled deeper into uncertainty. The light twisted and turned, flickering like a dying star as confusion swallowed the air. Henry felt the weight of Luna's small hand clinging tightly to his. He could sense her fear, raw and tangible, a sharp contrast to the chaos unraveling around them. A monster stood before them, and it wore familiar skin. Shadows threatened, closing in, but deep down, a fire, ignited, a desperate need to protect her. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Henry shouted, eyes darting between the dar. "What do you mean it's all a lie?" But before she could answer, Claire's distorted voice broke through, her silhouette becoming bolder against the surreal light. "Mother, you made a mistake coming back." It wasn't just anger in her tone. It was terror and pain twisted into a weapon. Then, suddenly, something shifted. The dark figure behind Claire began to change, its features morphing like wax in fire. Henry squinted, confusion flooding his mind. Was that a face? Suddenly, everything snapped into clarity, leaving him breathless. Luna's voice sliced through his thoughts, and he turned to see her eyes wide with fear. The light flickered again, casting ominous shadows that twisted the room into a hellish kaleidoscope. "Look out!" he shouted, but it was too late. The darkness lunged forward, and as it enveloped Claire, a scream erupted. It shattered like glass through the wild chaos echoing off the walls before being swallowed by the void. And in an instant, something changed. The figure before them, their father, began to shimmer, his form melting into bright blades of light that pierced through the shadows. Henry's heart stopped. "Dad?" he gasped. But what came next sent a shockwave through his entire being. With a horrifying twist, the shadows swirled, sucking in the light until everything was dark. There was a blinding flash. A sudden explosion ripped through them, cascading waves of energy that felt like being hit with a freight train. Just as quickly, it dissipated, leaving only a deafening silence, and then his mother's voice echoed, "You are all part of something greater." In that moment, from the wreckage of the chaos, emerged Luna. But something was off. Her eyes glowed with an ethereal light, a flicker of power that shook Henry to his core. "Luna?" he said, his voice trembling. Fear clawed at him. Her small frame was engulfed in light, changing under his gaze. The girl he knew was fading, replaced by something ancient, something powerful that made the air tingle with energy. "I see it now, Henry." Her voice was tinged with authority, a whisper that slithered through the darkness. Your family binds us all. You're the key." "No!" Henry shouted, retreating, panic rising in his chest. "You can't be serious. This isn't you." But the change spread across her face, a familiar smile that showed a depth he never knew. "You hold a legacy, one you can't begin to comprehend." All at once it clicked, the whispers, the tension. The shadowy figures that followed, the truth sprawled out in front of him, raw and brutal. His entire life, a tapestry woven with deception. Luna, or whatever she had become, stepped closer, her aura pulsating. Together, we can unlock realms, if you accept your place. Henry stumbled back, grappling with the knowledge that the most innocent among them harbored unimaginable power. "No, I refuse to believe this." But just then, the ground beneath them trembled once more, and the reality split. The walls crackled and peeled away like paper, revealing a swirling vortex of color and light behind. And in that terrifying moment, all hope shattered away. The darkness screamed, a crescendo of chaos threatening to swallow them whole. The question burned in his mind. Who was Luna really? What lay within this dawning madness? As the explosion roared, driven by their intertwined destinies, Henry made a choice. He couldn't follow her down whatever rabbit hole awaited them. He had to fight to tear apart the very fabric of this nightmarish reality, even if it meant sacrificing everything he held dear. The light pulsed around Henry and Luna, a chaotic blend of colors that made his head spin. The darkness quivered, hungry and waiting, as Luna's new form shimmered. Henry clutched her hand tighter, battling against this change, feeling her essence slip through his fingers. "Luna! Please!" he begged, desperation clawing at his throat. "Fight it! You're still you!" But her eyes sparkled with a knowing that sent chills down his spine. "Henry, I was never just a girl. There's so much more." Time stretched, the air taut with uncertainty, and just as he prepared to lunge towards her, an earth-shattering scream erupted. It wasn't Claire. It wasn't the chaos closing in around them. It came from behind, cutting through the tension like a knife. The figure of their father shifted again, and his hollow laugh echoed. A darkness that seemed to coil greedily around them. "You really think you can stop what's happening? You're nothing but the spark in a grand design. You can't escape." But just as his father's words struck hard like venom, the swirling light exploded outward, cleaving through the oppressive shadow. In that moment of brilliance, a sudden movement caught Henry's eye. A flash of something metallic shot past him, slicing through the air with alarming speed. "Look out!" he shouted, flinging himself protectively over Luna, as something crashed into the opposite wall. It erupted into a blinding display of flames, illuminating the entire room in a hellish glow. Heat washed over him, stingingly real, and then he saw it, a body crashing amid the glittering debris. It laid there, unmoving, but the twisted face was hauntingly familiar. His heart dropped. "Claire!" he cried, panic ricocheting in his chest. She lay crumpled, the light flickering off her still figure, surrounded by remnants of shattered chaos. This couldn't be real. Luna gasped, eyes widening in horror. "No, no, she can't be dead." But her voice trembled, almost as if she were more afraid of the truth than the shattered form at their feet. "Stay back!" Henry shouted instinctively, pushing Luna behind him. The truth struck him harder than any punch. She was in on it. She brought this darkness to us. But as he stepped closer, ready to face the monster he thought he knew, the ground beneath them began to shake again, sucking in the light until everything felt like a nightmare they were trapped in. Claire's eyes flickered unexpectedly. It was a glimmer, a flicker of movement. Did she breathe? A shudder swept through the air. All at once, she opened her eyes, bright and burning, filled with something not quite human. "Henry," she whispered, but her voice wasn't hers anymore. It echoed with power that resonated dark and twisted. "You have no idea." Shock hammered in his ears. The fabric of everything he knew unraveled with her cold laughter. "You still think we're family? It was never about blood." Suddenly, the room split apart. With a final blast, Claire rose, shedding her old self like a snake. In a grotesque transformation, her face morphed into a terrifying visage that shouted betrayal. "You're not just a pawn in this game. You're the prize." Traición crackled through the air as Henry staggered back, his mind racing. Luna's warmth slipped away, replaced by icy dread as families and loyalties turned upside down. Everything he thought about love and connection twisted sickeningly. Dark secrets stewed like angry smoke. "Are you ready to take your place among the true family?" Her voice sliced through him like daggers, sharp and unyielding. "Who are you?" Henry shouted, feeling the walls close in. Panic flooding his thoughts. And in that moment, as the reality twisted deeper, another shock rippled through the room, blending with Claire's revealing laugh. The shadows turned tangible, swirling in response, and in the heart of chaos, Henry realized this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the very soul of who he thought he was. He stood at the precipice, facing a horrifying new truth. The game had changed. The identities flipped. And with the suddenness of shifting sands, he understood. The real battle lay within. With dread filling his heart, Henry took a deep breath. Would he stay and face this nightmare? Or would he flee into the blind unknown, hoping for some glimmer of salvation? The answers loomed like shadows, dark and foreboding, waiting for him to decide. The light flickered once more, illuminating the chaos around Henry. Claire's distorted figure loomed ominously, laughter dripping with venom. He felt paralyzed, a surge of emotions choking him. The air thickened with tension. Claire was no longer just family. She was a wraith of betrayal. "Henry, you're weak," Claire's voice hissed, the shadows around her twisting like serpents. "You think you can fight this? You think you can protect her?" But even as fear clawed at his insides, he realized with a jolt that he wasn't afraid of Claire anymore. No, it was the monstrous truth of their lineage crashing down around him, shattering everything he thought he knew. "Stop!" he shouted, feeling the weight of that word echo through the darkness. But the shadows surged forward. Then, with a blinding flash, something shifted in the air, a rumbling that shook not just the ground, but his very soul. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for something to erupt. Suddenly, a thunderous boom pierced through the tension, and the room exploded. Walls trembled, the ceiling cracked, and with an earth-shaking roar, a figure burst free from the shadows, the true master of chaos. It was their mother, but she was transformed, her presence electrifying, eyes burning with ancient energy. "Enough!" she bellowed, voice a thunderstorm. "You will all bow to your true legacy." Henry stumbled back, stunned. He felt a rush of betrayal wash over him. "Mom, what have you become?" Luna squeezed his hand tighter, trembling. "Henry!" she cried, fear wrapping around her voice. Ignoring her, Claire laughed maniacally. "See? She was never a victim. She chose this." But as the light radiated brighter, Henry's heart raced. "No! Mom, don't do this! You're making a mistake!" His voice cracked, jagged with desperation. And that's when the shocking twist hit hard. From their mother's outstretched hand, a lashing tendril of darkness shot toward Claire. Without warning, it wrapped around her, pulling her back into the shadows with a violent force. But there was something more chilling, a flicker of pain, of recognition in Claire's eyes before she vanished. "Claire!" Henry shouted, the word ripped from his throat, anguish clawing at his heart. "Silence!" their mother thundered, though her voice wavered. "Everything you believed is a lie. Claire was never just your sister. She was the vessel through which our power could be tapped, and now she is lost." "What?" Shock overwhelmed him. "What do you mean, lost?" But before any of them could process that horror, the shadows retreated like a tide, and Henry's breath hitched. Luna's eyes darted around, absorbing the fragments of this new reality. "Henry, what's happening?" And just like that, everything changed. The very foundation of their family cracked beneath them. The flicker of hope extinguished with harsh finality. "No, you're wrong," he shouted, face hot with anger. "You can't blame Claire for this. I refuse to believe it." But as he wrestled with this realization, his mother's transformed face broke into a cruel smile. "You've awakened the true nature of your bloodline, and with it comes the price." And suddenly it clicked. The warmth he remembered from childhood, the love they shared, was siphoning into a dark hole of treachery. His own family turned against him, the very essence of their existence now entwined with malevolence. Henry stood at the edge of the abyss, a storm of thoughts crashing violently inside him. Could he trust anything or anyone? Was he fighting for salvation or surrendering to inevitable doom? A cold dread settled, thick and heavy, as everything spiraled out of control, and somewhere beyond the darkness, shadows stretched long and deep, waiting, watching. What had been unleashed would change everything. Henry took a shuddering breath, fear igniting a spark within him. The future felt bleak, but he wouldn't lose hope without a fight. What lay ahead, he couldn't know. But something twisted in his gut told him the worst was yet to come. The chaos roared around them, a swirling tempest of light and shadow. Henry felt the air thicken with tension, every breath a struggle against the unfolding nightmare. He could see his mother, twisted and powerful, the embodiment of everything they had ever feared. "You have no real choice, Henry. Embrace who you are," she shouted, the words echoing through the hall like a bell tolling doom. "No, I refuse to be part of this," Henry cried, his heart racing. He couldn't accept this fate. Luna was at his side, trembling, her small hand gripping his, tightly. "We can fight this together," he shouted, determination flooding through him, and with that, something inside him sparked. A desperate energy surged, pulsing through his veins. It was the knowledge that, no matter how deep the darkness ran, they still had each other. It was hope, a single flicker amid a storm. "Luna, close your eyes." He pulled her closer, shielding her with his own body as the shadows began to swirl, threatening to consume them. With a roar, he thrust his arms forward, summoning every ounce of strength he had. "I will not be part of your legacy." The walls of the mansion shivered, the energy shifting like wind through the trees. As if responding to his command, the shadows began to retreat. Henry pressed harder, pushing against the weight of despair. "You will not take her," he bellowed. With a blinding flash, the darkness shrieked, piercing through their reality. Moonlight flooded in, as if the universe was pulling back a curtain. The twisted figure of his mother faltered, her power waning in the face of his defiance. Behind her, Claire's form flickered like a dying flame, a tortured cry escaping her lips as she was caught in the tumult. "No!" Claire's voice cracked, a mix of fury and fear. "You can't do this!" But Henry felt the surge of control, a rush of power that reminded him of the love his family had once shared, now twisted by greed and betrayal. "I won't be a pawn anymore." With one last surge of will, he focused on the light flooding through the mansion, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. The shadows screamed, twisting desperately as they exploded outwards, leaving only silence in their wake. When the dust settled, Henry fell to his knees, heartbeat echoing in his ears. Lunchtime left his side, vibrating with uncertainty. But there was something bright in the air, something real. Slowly he turned, eyes searching. Claire stood there, disheveled but alive, clearly shaken, the traces of darkness evaporating from her. Henry?" She sounded fragile, her facade cracking. "Claire!" His heart lifted, a spark of relief cutting through the tension. He rushed towards her, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "I thought I lost you." Luna stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're okay," she exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. But as they held on to each other, the ground beneath them groaned, a familiar, dark energy lingering. The air thickened once more, a relentless reminder of what they had narrowly escaped. In the haze, remnants of their father's legacy threatened to seep back into their lives. Whispers of power, shadows of destruction. "We have to go," Claire said, her voice steadier now but still laced with urgency. "It's not over yet," Henry nodded, steeling himself. This was the moment they needed to fight for their future. "Then let's make one together," he said, as he turned to Luna. "We'll find a way to build our lives from the ashes." As they began to walk towards the door, Henry glanced back, the heavy weight settling in his heart. What will come next, he wondered. But for now, they had survived. A new beginning awaited them, even if it felt fraught with uncertainties. In the distance, the mansion stood shrouded in shadows, a quiet reminder of the chaos that had unfolded. The possibilities ahead were limitless, yet daunting, and as they stepped into the light, one thought lingered. Could they ever truly break the chains of their legacy? And as the door closed behind them, it felt like a piece of the past would forever remain unshackled, waiting for a moment to reemerge. If you've enjoyed this thrilling journey, you must subscribe now to not miss out on upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this finale. Don't wait 1 second longer. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending.